I recognize that I already used this in a thumbnail once, and I'm probably going to do it again because I'm talking a little bit about this, but actually the main focus of this video is to further talk about my building system that I've been continually working on, because it's kind of its own thing. I am calling it AMBS, just to make it hard to pronounce. It is the Advanced Modular Building System. Maybe I just call it Modular Building System, but that seems a little bit vague. I don't know. It's essentially just a spiritual successor to CCBS, not meant to replace it, and I don't think you can replace it since it already exists, but rather meant to supplement it in a lot of ways, to sort of bulk its use cases, and also to, at the same time, be its own thing. I don't call it a character and creature building system because it's not meant for just characters and creatures. I could see use for some of these pieces even in like Technic or something like that, if I'm going to be honest. So without further ado, let's go ahead and focus on those pieces first, and then we'll come back to these guys. And if you enjoy this content, be sure you're subscribed. It helps me feel good. So this system in and of itself is built around basically two different modular systems, kind of a third. We'll talk about that in a moment. But these two right here, the green being the shoulder or hip, and I don't think LEGO would only make these sizes. Preferably, they would have even more than this. And backbones or spines in blue. Same thing. I would expect LEGO to have different sizes of these pieces, and maybe even different orientations of where the ball joint itself goes, which there are some interesting thoughts as to the ball joint on here, but that's probably going to be in its own separate video because I haven't even fully thought of that yet. That said, though, if we wanted to build the world's tallest, skinniest guy, we have that as an option. We want to build the world's smallest, roundest boy, we got that one too. See, it's fairly simple of a system to use. I shouldn't say simple. That's not the right way to frame it. It is intuitive. Intuition is mainly what I'm leaning on here. And there's so much you can do with a system like this, because just like looking at this piece here with a bar connection on the side, and in this case a single pinhole, but LEGO could make one with 2 or 3 or more. I don't know how far they would go with it. You can do so many things, connecting this to the side of the body with the bar hole connections. A thing that I've never seen from LEGO before, a bar hole through a pinhole. Probably something they've tried and settled against, I'm not sure. But you could do crazy things like this. Something that's, I mean, not really possible with other systems. Yeah, the bars do take up the pinhole slot. I mean, you could still use studs in those locations at the very least, but it's still interesting that you can get so many different connection points out of a body like this. If you want the guy with the as many arms as possible, but also relatively small, it's a pretty easy framework, I'm going to be honest, to do something like that. It's not the only way to do it. I think there are probably more practical ways to connect them, like a regular lift arm here, but you get the idea, right? And I think that's generally where the strength of a system like this lies, is in the fact that it is a system that is built to be modular and is built to be relatively intuitive. Not perfect. I'm just a single solitary designer. I don't think that I would be the one to solve all of the potential problems of these pieces, and these pieces don't exist in my hand, so I don't get to feel them, play around with them, and see what use cases they're best for, or what use cases they maybe suffer and need some, help, need some changes. We've also, of course, got the clip-on ball, and someone actually brought up a really interesting point, because in the comments of the last video, someone had asked why I don't use a half ball joint, as in a ball joint that's been split down the middle in half, and then have an accessory bar or an accessory pin, whatever you want to call it, an accessory pin hole, something along those lines, to essentially stick two of these pieces together to sandwich them to create a full-size ball that can encompass a closed axle. And that's a really interesting idea. The main reason I don't settle on something like that is sheerly out of durability. Those accessory pins have a notorious, fragility problem. I've definitely broken a few of them in my time, and so I think they are a fascinating piece to work with, and I hope that LEGO continues to introduce their sort of support with more pieces. I understand at the same time why it's so difficult to utilize something like that. It's a really interesting idea because taking the ball joint, sandwiching together, and then throwing a shell on top or whatever, essentially locks the piece in place until you remove the shell. You would obviously run into some issues with actually taking the two halves of the ball joint apart, because you'd likely either need something with either minimal clutch power or something that's compatible with like a brick separator, and that could get to be quite tedious quickly-ish, but it depends on how many you use, of course, right? Now, obviously, if LEGO was going to do a system like this, I don't think they would do a bare axle here either, but rather I think they would do something where there's maybe like a thin little ring of extra plastic at certain nodules that basically snap this to specific locations, right? So that way you're still locked into the grid, let's say, of Lego, because that's what it is in a nutshell, is that everything that Lego makes for the most part is modular. It falls within a system. It falls on this grid that you see right in front of you here, with few exceptions. Some things fall in between, sure, but that's more the exception than the rule, and in their cases they're very useful pieces, right? So overall, I think the idea of a system like this with more backbones, with more of these hip pieces, and even if we go over into Blender just momentarily, you can see one that I'm working on right here, which has an axle hole all the way through it, because I think that's actually closer to what Lego would do, although this wouldn't be rounded here, it'd be flat, but I'm still working on these pieces, as you can tell. That said, though, I think overall it's a really interesting concept, because it at the very least shows that there's potential for something like this. Is there a praying mantis on my wall? Oh, that's hilarious. Anyway, there is. Anyway, just the tiniest little guy. Oh, he's cute. Anyway, I just saw one the other day on one of my plants outside. It was adorable. So, going back to this one for a moment here. The Destroyer Droid, one of the main problems with this build as it stands currently is lack of friction in specific places. Like the entire upper half of this is suspended by only a bar here. Obviously, that's not what Lego would do. Of course not. But that's why this is stuff that I would want to continue to refine, continue to play with further, because once I have something like this in hand, that's when I can really sort of dig into it and address any issues it might have. The most notable issue is the fact that this back leg needs to go inside the model. Currently, that's not possible. This piece is in the way, and several different Technic pieces inside of here along the way are also in front of it too. It can't go through them. It can't go through these lift arms on the inside. That's fine, because again, I can continue to refine this build as I have been doing. But as of right now, with the exception of my pieces from my custom CCBS, and I don't even use these ball joints, I don't know why they're here, but these pieces right here, now let's see if I can grab the other modules. I've got this one. I didn't hold control down. I've got this one. I've got two more in here. This, nope, that's not right. There's one more back here, and then there's one on the opposite side, right there. I don't know why I couldn't just grab that from that side, but that's it. Those are my pieces right there. And something like this is definitely doable with pieces that currently exist. Good Lord, he's fast. Look at him go. All right, anyway. But overall, this just shows the idea of a system like this and how it can function in the environment that exists today with parts that exist today from Lego. So that's it in a nutshell. Anyway, if you want to build these guys, by the way, or at least take them apart and look at them, you can do that over on the Discord. These files are already over there, although I'm probably going to re-upload this one since this has been modified since then. Again, remember, this is not buildable in real life, but it is at least posable here in Studio or whatever other software you want to look at. So, still cool, nonetheless. Obviously, they don't exist in brown either, which is unfortunate. With all that being said, though, I'd really appreciate a subscribe again if you do enjoy this type of content. I plan on making some more videos where I talk a little bit more in depth about the types of connections Lego makes and talk about praying mantises. If you want to check out any of the other links that I have, the description, Instagram, Patreon, I really appreciate any support over there. It goes to paying the internet, which is, I guess, tomorrow. And yeah, I guess that's it. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay cool. It's very hot here. Take care.